I want to have let Paul share a note of wisdom that I got to hear just now. All right, Paul, here's the mic. You want me to hold it for you?
Time is a device that prevents everything from happening at once. In general, we think of time in three dimensions. One is past time, which we call history, and you can see history in terms of the politics of countries. You can see history in terms of the science development of countries, and so on. The second portion is today, which is one reads about what's happening today. And finally, the third portion of time is the future. And every one of us would like to know the future. I've never met a human being who said, I don't want to care what happens in the future. Everybody wants to know what happens, at least in their future, if not in the future of the economy or of the politics of the system. Okay? Now, Keynes, John Maynard Keynes was an Englishman who taught at Cambridge University for many years. He developed a theory of economics which is different than the classical theory of economics. Let me stop with that. Most economists, even today, know only the classical theory of economics. So when somebody isn't like me, but somebody else is saying they're going to give a talk or they're going to say something, you can almost be sure that it's classical economics and not Keynesian economics. Keynes wrote a theory, a book, which was called the General Theory of Employment, Interest, and Money. And it is a theory of economics which says the classical theory is all wrong. Now, how many of you have gone to take a course in economics in college? I don't know. But if you did, my guess is you learned classical economics, because almost all economists currently teach or speak classical economics rather than Keynesian economics. Keynesian economics has a bad reputation. Why? Because we find that in our lives in a modern economic world that there are problems. What are the problems? Recession. Recession means unemployment. There are people who want to work for a living who can't find a job. Inflation. There are prices that continually rise and make us poorer because our income doesn't rise with them. And income distribution. There's distribution of income where there are millionaires around and also poor people who may earn $50 a week or $20 a week or something of that sort. Okay, so Keynes attacked the classical economics, which sort of said whatever happens in economics is okay because it's God-given. So you shouldn't worry about what happens in economics. Okay, now I once had about a month or two ago, had a conversation with Queen Elizabeth of England. And she said to me, why is it that most economists that I talk to or hear from say, nothing's wrong, but when my Prime Minister talks to me, he tells me we have terrible problems. We have problems in poverty, and we have unemployed workers in the community, and we have inflation, and it's all part of the game. So Queen Elizabeth said to me, is it all part of a game, or did some people know, as we now know, that certain things were going to go wrong? What went wrong? We had recession. Recession is unemployment. There are people who want to work for a living and can't find a job. The classical economists would explain people who are unemployed as those workers who refuse to accept the wage that the market wanted to pay them. So if the market wanted to pay them $20 an hour, they would not want to work unless they got $25 an hour. Therefore, clearly, they'd be unemployed. But classical economics says that's not serious because that's their choice. If they want to starve rather than earn income, you're free to do it. That's what a classical economist would say. Okay? Inflation is when the price of goods that you see at the store go up. And so every once in a while you see a newspaper clipping, the consumer price index went up 10% this year. Well, 10% means what? It means that on average, those of you who are earning income, when you go to the store when you go to the store, you notice the prices have gone up 10%, so that your income.
We can't hear you when you put the mic down. And then when you're ready, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that when your income is steady, you have to spend 10% more in the store to buy the same things that you bought last week at a lower price. Well, that's not a very nice thing. So that's the second problem. Why do these things occur in a capitalist monetary economy? That's a question that Keynes tried to answer. You have a question for me?
Yeah, I'll say it into the mic.
So you're talking about kind of the core of Keynesian economics versus the more traditional economics route that a lot of different economists go through. I'm curious. Obviously, you've had 2 bachelors of science, you have a master's, you have a PhD in this, and I'm curious of all the various theories that are out there, all the various information that you can pull from. What really drew you to Keynesian economics?
Among other things, I happened to know when I was just starting off in graduate school, I knew a man named Sir Roy Harrod. He was a lawyer at the time. And Roy was the first biographer of Keynes. He had worked with Keynes during the Second World War. And so he told me a lot about Keynes, who was, of course, by then dead. That encouraged me to look at Keynes more often. Furthermore, in later years, I met a second biographer of Keynes, and we discussed what he thought of Keynes, and he was living in Keynes's old house, so he took me to Keynes's old house, and we sat down. He said, in this chair, Keynes did this, this, and this. In that chair, he did so and so. So I was sort of back in the history of Keynes. So Keynes became very familiar because the question was, it again happened in the last 10 or 15 years. We've had recession, we've had inflation, we've had problems with the international payments, balance of payments. Why? Well, if you look at what I call classical theory, that is the theory that most economists have learned, and if you took economics in most schools as an undergraduate, that's the economics you have learned. In that school of economics, whatever happens is good. And if there's a recession, the recession is the problem of the people who are unemployed. They don't want to work. That's why they're unemployed. It's not that they can't find a job. They don't want to work for the price that the job would pay.
May I borrow the mic again?
So it sounds like one of the things that really drew you in not only was having this connection to John Maynard Keynes, it sounds like, or Keynes, you also were really interested in, it almost seems like his theory is more empathetic towards people than perhaps traditional economic theory, which is genuinely fascinating. And I actually want to invite all of us. So this is the book that Paul is donating. He's officially signed it for us. And as I said earlier, for those of us who just came in, our friend and fellow resident, Joe Goldstein, wrote us a little primer for those of us who are not as well educated as you on it, Paul, such as myself. So if you want one, I have it here. I actually am going to transition us to the next part of this, which is more of the mingling. Instead of keeping us in here, I actually want to open the library doors and let us go sit where it's a little bit warmer and more comfortable out in the Fairfield room. So, Paul, if you want to make yourself available for further discussion, I actually have a lot of questions I would love to chat with you about. I also will make room for other people who have questions. I won't fight anybody, don't worry. But let's go and enjoy ourselves out in the Fairfield room. And on your way, please help yourself at the bar. We have a specialty cocktail today that is inspired by the subject of the book and is based on one of Paul's favorite drinks, which is bourbon. And with that, I'm going to give you one last round of applause, and then Paul, we will, as a group, go sit in we're in the library in the Fairfield room. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share before we go? No? Okay. All right. Round of applause for our friends here. And thank you all for coming.